Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast with Dr. Jessie Mahoney
and Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang.
We are physicians and leaders who are also trained in coaching, yoga, mindfulness, and integrative medicine.
We are also mothers, spouses, sisters, daughters, aunts, and friends.
In this podcast, we share candid, heart-centered, loving, science-based, thoughtful, and often fun conversations about the challenges life throws at us.
With our collective experience of over 30 years in physician and personal wellness, we reflect and offer pearls of wisdom for navigating life's challenges with more ease.
From parenting, marriages, money scarcity, cancer survivorship, uncertainty, challenges in practicing medicine, we cover it all.
We invite you to refresh your perspective and empower yourself with mindset, mindfulness, and other well-being tools that actually work. A quick reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice.
Welcome to our episode on wholehearted medicine with Dr. Michelle Biehl. Welcome to our very Dr. Michelle Biehl, who's faculty in pulmonary and critical care medicine at the Cleveland Clinic. She's the founder of the Post-ICU Recovery Clinic there, who's also a certified coach and a certified Cleveland Clinic peer coach, but she's also so much more. Are you frustrated by the constraints that the current healthcare system places on physicians?
Is your well-being jeopardized because of challenges at work?
Would you like to embody practicing wholehearted medicine?
So today we hope to amplify Dr. Biehl's amazing story and hopefully help you feel empowered towards also living wholeheartedly and practicing wholeheartedly.
So I wanted to begin the podcast by sharing a little bit about the origins of how you, Michelle, met both Jessie and me, because I think there's some synchronicity there. And so I believe you met Jessie first and attended one of her fabulous Sagrada retreats. And then you also reminded me that I had met you at the Brave Enough conference in 2019, where I had also met Jessie. And then most recently reached out to me. And I'm so grateful that you did during the last American Thoracic Society conference here in San Diego. And we had a lovely time connecting in person. So I used the words wholehearted with Dr. Biehl because in meeting her, for me for the first time at American Thoracic Society, not only that she was this lovely human being, but really she exuded this wholeness of mind, body, and spirit. So without further ado, I'd love for you to share a bit about your story and how you came to find coaching and your path to founding the Post-ICU Recovery Clinic and the next steps in your career and life journey.
Thank you so much, Ni-Cheng, and thank you, Jessie. It's an honor to be here today with you in this podcast that I have listened to so many episodes and been able to share my story and have a nice conversation and hopefully help others, with my story and my struggles. And so I met, so I'm going to start with a little bit of my story here, and then we get to when I met, Jessie. So I'm an immigrant. I was born and raised in Brazil. I did my medical school there, and then did my residency there, and then moved to the United States with my husband. He's also a physician. And we went to Miami, something like a culture very similar to Brazil. So that felt like not a big transition, although of course, moving countries and different language was a big transition for us. We did a residency there. So I repeated my residency, went to Mayo Clinic for pulmonary and critical care fellowship, did actually separate 2 years critical care and then 2 pulmonary. My husband and I were a year apart when he was a chief resident in Miami. But we were able to finish our fellowships together. And as an immigrant, you you come with different visas. Our visa was the J1 visa, where we have to either work in an underserved area for 3 years or go back to your country and stay working there for 2 years, and then you're free to come back. Now, we decided to stay there. We were very used and we liked the life we're having here in this country, despite, of course, missing our family and friends. But we then moved to South Dakota, Sioux Falls. And at that point, I had a son. I had a son in my fellowship. And during our stay in Sioux Falls, I had a daughter. And that time was hard. It was, we have to work 100% clinical time. And I had 2 kids, very young, no family help, and was pretty much a survival mode. And at some point, when we had completed our due diligence with our visa, and we decided to look for another place to work, and we decided, one of the places was Cleveland Clinic, based on a friend that we have at the clinic. There are a couple Brazilians who were working here, and say, how about you come and look at how it is. And for us, it was really a big, when we came and we liked, both of us had positions that were opportunities for both of us, which sometimes is hard for both physicians to have at the same time, but both of us had. And it was such a relief knowing that when we moved, we wouldn't be starting from scratch, because we knew already friends here, Brazilians, that's like our culture. And that would be like not a completely new start, as we did in Miami, as we did in Rochester, Minnesota, as we did in Sioux Falls. So when I came, that was really like a dream job for me. I started doing both pulmonary and critical care. And in the first 1 year of being here, I founded, together with colleagues, the Post-ICU Recovery Clinic, which is a clinic that sees ICU survivors and evaluate them after they have been in the unit with critical illness. And is really a very multidisciplinary and holistic way of evaluating these patients. So with that, I was also practicing pulmonary clinic. I was doing cystic fibrosis and bronchiectasis. I was doing ICU, and I just kept adding more and more to my plate, because you're in a new place, you want to show your work, and you want to. So I noticed that some of my old, not so helpful thought patterns that you have when you're a resident, a fellow, that started to come back, or over responsibility, over work. And then at some point, comparing yourself, not feeling enough, and having some self-doubt, having that arrival fallacy. Okay, is that what it's going to be now? And with that, I was having some challenges with my son, who at that point was not yet diagnosed with ADHD, and was very hard for our whole family to figure out how to best deal with him. And then COVID came. So, and at that point, I really noticed that I was burned out.
Of course you were. Of course.
And I was really I was lost. I was in a dark place. I was doing all of these things, but I was not sure what I wanted to do, what I wanted to stop. I just felt like that the way that it was not sustainable. And it was through Facebook that I knew about a program that's called Empower Women Physicians by Sunny Smith, and that was my. I found that there was people like me. I felt like I'm not the only one suffering with this. I found a tribe there, and then I started one of their programs, and that's how I knew about coaching. That was my introduction to coaching. And that's how my transformation, or my last few years change really started. It started with coaching.
And then you got trained as a coach. And I think you are someone actually who's perhaps partaken of many. I mean, I know you've partaken of many different coaching experiences over time and different programs.
And the word that you used there, which I really enjoyed hearing, was the word tribe, because I think we all need to find a tribe. And I want to offer that you are one of the people who inspires me to think that we also need lots of tribes. We don't just need one tribe, because I think we often say, oh, I'm doing this and I'm this type of person. And you are someone who has been in multiple different tribes and derived benefit from all of them.
Yes, correct, Jessie. I think we sometimes feel that we are just a physician and we cannot be anything else, right? But then you realize that you can actually be other things, and then you enjoy, and then finding, people that are, that share same ideas and that, are doing something different that, inspire you to do that. And coaching really started my transformation through like really the powerful questions that I started, asking myself and, being coached with no judgment, really curiosity. And that's, the first thing for me is to create awareness that the way things were not good, that I needed to change.
Interestingly, what was the clue that it was not good and you needed to change? Was it in your body, in your head? How did you figure that out?
All of the above.
Yeah.
So I was exhausted, really exhausted. There was a time that I came home from work, that I came home crying the whole time after a shift. I would be going to the ICU call, dreading, which it never happened to me before. I always loved the unit, and I was dreading to go to a call. I was mentally, I couldn't give anything else to my family at home. I was completely exhausted, and anything would make me very sensitive. Not exercising and all of those things. And I realized, the first thing I realized is I need space. I need time for me. I need to start letting go of things. Mm-hmm. And before letting go, I decided I'm going to say no to whatever comes next in my plate. I'm not going to take. And it was hard because I used to take things, take everything. And then, no, I cannot. And learn how to say no, right? That you feel okay with that decision. And there's also a process for me, a learning process. And at some point I started, what do I need to let go? And what do I need to start having more space for me in my life, so I can self-care, so I can sleep, I can nourish myself, I can exercise, those things that I know is good for my body and my mind. And I have like this, I call like a white space. It's like a space and time to really be and reflect what I wanted. And initially it was like, I don't even know what I like to do anymore, so I started really getting back to my body and like see the sensations of like, okay, this is what I'm doing now, I really love, right? I was in the unit, or I was going to see a patient in the emergency room, and that felt like, I just felt like in a flow. And other times I was doing something like it just doesn't feel right. But in my mind, our brain tricks us and saying like, no, you are not doing right, you're failing. But at some point, I don't need to do this anymore. Why I'm going to force myself to do this if there are so many other things that I love and I know I'm good at? So that was like, and the kind of taking the agency and feeling that I'm empowered to really do what I want in my life. And that's really was kind of a click, for me, that, okay, what do I like? And I started really feeling my body and started then making decisions. All right. So I would say like was like awareness, clarity, and then courage, to take an action to make those changes.
And also permission that you gave yourself, because we were talking before we started recording about the challenges of, number one, the challenges in medicine of just giving ourselves permission to actually like something and to give ourselves space, because it's not the default what we were trained. And then that whole other level of being an immigrant and giving yourself permission is also not what you were trained to believe and not what you were used to.
Yeah, absolutely, Jessie. And that, for us immigrants, when we come to this country, it's very, it's intense work, hard work, competition. And when we are here, when you get a spot here, we really continue to do that hard work to make sure we are seen, to make sure we get that next level of like fellowship or job, because in our minds, we're always less. the Americans, right? Because we are immigrants, because we don't speak English well, because people are not going to understand us, because I'm going to, not make this right. And that mentality is really hard to break, based on experiences that we have during residency, fellowship, and then really at that point in my life where I was in this dream job, giving myself permission to do less, really, because that's what I needed. I needed to do less. And it was okay to do less, to let go of some things. And one of the big changes I made, I went part-time, just 0.85 FTE. Doesn't look like a lot, but it was really in the time I needed to reconnect with myself.
Thank you so much for bringing up that immigrant experience. Being an immigrant myself, even though I came when I was 5, all of those things that you just mentioned still resonate very, very deeply with me, and can sometimes be a downfall as I try to live in alignment with myself as well, Michelle. So thank you for bringing. I also wanted to bring up that you mentioned a lot of mindfulness in your journey, inclusive of the non-judgmental foundational awareness that you brought up in noticing that something was off, that the lifestyle in the beginning of the journey that you mentioned was not sustainable. Also, a lot of tuning into your body, trusting that the body was sending you messages that were helpful and that you needed to pay attention to. And then ultimately, I think the combination leading to this keen wisdom inherently of alignment versus misalignment that has helped guide you since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that I really learned through coaching. I'm gonna say, and like coaching means also learning mindfulness and learning to be present, learning to pay attention to what I'm feeling, and kind of really like knowing that there is a circumstance. I have thoughts about that, and generating feelings and really naming those feelings, right, and being able to be aware of what's going on and knowing that that's gonna really drive my actions and results. And I this is something that I continue to evolve, to use more and more of like body sensing, what's right, what's not, because many times your body tells like work harder, right? Something's wrong, you have to work more, work harder, do more. And then it's actually, no, I need to just hold a little bit. Let me just feel myself and what's going on. And that's been really also a big, I would say, personal and professional. I mean, personally, and also I'm using professionally in my development. So, and I do want to then say that through coaching, I met so many amazing women physicians who are doing coaching, and then you, Ni Cheng, that I met at the Brave Enough, and then I met. So initially, I knew about Jessie through her podcast, and I started listening, and I started going to some of her sessions, like to what is coaching and transitions, and I was like, oh my God, she is amazing. I need to do something with her. And I look at those retreats, oh my God, 5 days, that's what I need. And then I kept like looking, when is going to be the time that I'm going to do? And then beginning of actually end of like between December and January, I decided I'm going to go to the September one, and I'm going to give myself as a birthday gift. And that was last year in 2023. But I decided early on, I was so happy. That was my commitment to my personal growth. And I went there. Initially, it's hard because you feel like you have I felt like I have to change. I have to do something. And when I really let go of that need to do something, I need to use this time and really just to be present, appreciate the nature, the simplicity of things. Yoga, which was like hard for me to do. Remember, Jessie, one of my first times, I was like, I couldn't stay still. I'm a runner, so like I couldn't stay still. And then I for me, was being in the nature. That's when I could stay still and being nourished, being among a few other women physicians. the coaching. I think it's so many things there that help me, but giving that space for me, time and space to be myself, to be present, and to be aligned again with, with myself. And that's when a few more other big decisions in my life also happened after that.
Well, and what you describe is the intention of those retreats is exactly that, to get you out of your environment and to give you the space and to offer the nature, because you are not the only one. So many people come, and even if there's someone who maybe practices yoga, they still can't sit still, and they still can't, I'll say they can't practice mindfulness, though Neil Ching will say we can all practice mindfulness, which I agree. They just can't stop to do it. They might be able to walk to do it, or they might be able to, we at Sagrada do a bit of a hike up to this mountaintop, and like then they can practice because they're out of breath. Like it gets them into a spot. Or sometimes nature is so stunning, forest bathing or golden light meditation gets you into a place where you can let go of a little bit. But you describe sort of the intent, which is to give you a space where you're completely nourished and you're present, and there are not a bunch of other decisions to make. You really have to give yourself permission to get there and to actually show up. And many people do it as a birthday present. Actually, you're not alone in that. And so I do hear, though, people coming at the pressure of like, I came here because I'm going to make this decision. And that feels a little pressure filled. And yet I think once you settle in, that's actually when the decisions happen. Do you want to talk about some of the decisions that you made there and how you figured it out?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I was, in my mind for several months before I went there was about my position as the director of this Post-ICU Recovery Clinic. That I was the founder. I built that clinic. I was directing for 4 years. It's kind of my baby, but in the past months, and I'm not going to say a few months, many months, I was just not feeling my heart was there anymore. And I started enjoying other things, but I didn't have energy or brain space to do those other things that I really wanted to do. And I started thinking, I think I need to let go and give this to someone else, fresh. And it was very hard. It was very hard because there was a lot of fear of rejection. What are gonna people think of me? Thinking people are not going to trust me anymore because I'm letting this directorship go. It was, I felt that the external validation that I was valued because I was the director of that. And if I'm not anymore, what I'm going to be then, right? And my chair, which was amazing. I felt that external validation. How I'm going to disappoint him. There's so many thoughts that I started to break down and figure out this is not okay. No, that's okay. I don't want to disappoint myself anymore. It's okay if I disappoint others. I don't have control of what others are going to think or say. But when I realized that, and I still felt that something is holding me back. I felt like I have this, I want to do this, but something doesn't feel. And during a coaching session with you, Jessie, I realized that it was so hard because that was not what I was supposed to do, right? As we go, add more. How I'm going to be letting this position, the directorship go, and not adding anything else. Usually people add, and then they let some things go, right? Because they are stepping up to another position. And I was not really stepping up. I was stepping down and giving myself time to figure out what I wanted to do. And then when I realized that, and I remember we talked about, how about if I am the first to do that? And I am going to perhaps inspire others to do that, to be more, live a life that's more aligned with my values and be more present, have more time for me and be happier, because that's what happened. And there was, again, coaching to go, to have that. And remember you asked me, Jessie, are you going to regret this decision 6 months, a year from now? Look at yourself. And I said, oh, I'm not going to regret. So that was also another big thing. So and that really, when I had the clarity, and then the next step was courage, And I remember we have those words at Sagrada that every day we pick. And that was kind of, there was clarity there. Awareness was the first day, and then was clarity somewhere, and then it was courage. And then I really came back knowing that that was the right thing to do. I was really feeling good with myself. There was not that suffering anymore when you're doing something that you feel like something is not right. I was like, this is what I need to do. And I wanted to go and tell as soon as possible my boss, my chair, so we can move things, right? I don't want to be in this, I want to transition that clinic well, because I built and I had a lot of love. There was the other thing is finish this with love. And that's how I was like completing this, with love, because I still have love for this that I created, but giving the opportunity to someone else, to continue that. And that was also key for me in this process.
And I just want to reflect on the fact that we can love something. We can be amazing at it. We can have built it, and we can gift it or pass it along to someone else. In your post-ICU clinic, just knowing that you had built it, I don't know how many of our listeners know, but Michelle knows that I am a post-ICU survivor myself. And when she told me about this clinic, which I had not ever heard of anything like it, and we had a very brief conversation, not even as, as a patient, but for me to understand that there were people out there that knew that this post-ICU transition, I'll call it, was really a big deal for those of us who had been there. I mean, that actually was my own epiphany. I was like, oh, I needed that, and it didn't exist. And so just by you going through this process in coaching, I benefited because I felt like I was able to move through that just knowing that there was that thing. And so the beauty of this is you can create this beautiful thing, and it can have an impact in that way, and it can still go on without you. And I love the idea. It's sort of like I'm about to be an empty nester tomorrow, and I'm thinking we create these beautiful children and we put our love into them, and then they go on, right? And that's sort of how it actually works. And we can do that with clinics that we built, and I have done that with a clinic, and I think, and different roles, things that we loved. And it doesn't mean that, I think in medicine we think they have to be bad to leave too. Like it has to be a problem. I can't leave it unless it's a problem. And so I love this idea of leaving something with love.
And that's how I really felt. And I felt like I have done so much. I have helped so many patients because I really loved what and if you put me again in the clinic with survivors, I love to talk with them and just open up this whole world of post-ICU survivorship of the, what you call post-intensive care syndrome or PICS. But I just felt like my work is complete here. I want to move on. And when I had that, semi-closure, because there was also, the transition of new leadership and all of that. But new opportunities started to come, or maybe they were there, but I was not really even looking at them, right? So I started, oh, this is amazing. I want to do that. And then I was able to really take some things and then I also get back to myself, okay, slow, like don't like just go to like, so it doesn't happen again that you are like full. But it's a transition period when you're leaving something you don't have yet a lot of things, that you are doing, except like, of course, being the ICU, working hard and all of that. But, you always feel like, what else? It's difficult, that uncertainty of what's next, what am I gonna take, and how is this gonna evolve? And that is also, a process, right? That like, what is, and give myself, for some time, I pressure myself. I need to take something. I need to take a committee. I need to take I need to take something, and I felt less for not taking that. And then I realized, through coaching, give myself time. Just let this transition be, and you start feeling what really is aligned, what you like, what you want to do. And many times I had to do that because I started feeling like, oh, I'm not doing, people are doing all of these things, and then it's like, no, it's okay. Give myself time to, we are not used to like just be right. In my weeks that I have, part of my part-time that I have some weeks off is really to self-care and take care of my family and do things and, that I enjoy, and that's okay to do that.
So what tools from your retreat have helped you do that? And I want to reflect on one that I know about. Your retreat group is still a group and still a support group. And I'm imagining, because you're active in that, that it's that is still a tool. Your small community of people whom you went through that transformation with. Are there you can reflect on that and or anything else from the retreat that's still serving you well?
Yes. So it, many things, but what really I still, use it, and I have the time and space for that. I got out any of the noise of other things that keep distracting us and focus on myself. I felt that I was in a safe space. Psychologically, I could be myself. Even, there was another person who was an immigrant. So that was, I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. But I really felt I could be myself no matter what. The moments of mindfulness mixed with coaching and yoga that you do so amazing, Jessie, that was really transformational for me. The self-compassion that I think was so also the book that you chose, Good Morning, I Love You, and reading that and how it's practical to do that self-compassion and how we can, I realized that we cannot change from shame and guilt. We need to have grace ourselves and then say, okay, it's okay that happened. How do I want to move on? What do I want to learn and move on? But have the, that self-compassion that, and really time to the nature was also really amazing. Time to just be there, reflect, be present in every moment. And not even talking about the amazing food that your husband cooks. And that was also, we just felt nourished. You felt like taking care. I felt someone was like holding me, in that whole process. And I also learned to have my back, right? To trust myself. And I can make these decisions. I can trust myself. I can have my back. And I have my little book, that we have, like the notebook, Pause and Presence. And many times I go back to that, many times, because my writing there was like so precious that I just go back. And it's been really transformation. I cannot really, say how it was and how I recommend that.
Oh, I love hearing that. Makes me, and one of the other person who attended who was an immigrant, I just want to reflect, your decisions did inspire someone else. We talked about how they might, but they actually did. And seeing that follow up now, a year later, is pretty magical.
No, that makes me smile. And I also want to say that it's, it was, the coaching, mindfulness, going to these retreats, therapy, some podcasts. So it's a mood, with many things, support from family, our tribe, the community. And that really helps not just to those moments that you are transitioning, but to keep moving, right? Because there is constant change, and to make sure we continue to have that support in our lives.
Michelle, you're exemplary of wholehearted living. What other aspects in your work schedule have you become empowered to change, to continue to live in a wholehearted way? What are some tips?
Yes.
Listeners who would like to take some steps of their own towards practicing medicine and also living in a wholehearted way?
Yes. For me was realizing that I needed to focus more on one area. And for me was ICU. And although I liked the clinic, I realized that I am I can serve better in the ICU. I am a better, person. I can give myself more there than in the clinic. And that's, and that for me, choosing to focus on one area would make me, less stressed and happier. And then I realized that I could do that change, which was initially like I went part-time, which also was another big process to present that idea to my chair, because I'm the youngest in our department who is part-time. And that's usually not well taken, but be clear that that's what you want. And you know that that's what is going to be good for you. And also know that that's not forever. You can always go back and change. Sometimes you feel that the change is always like, this is the change, I'm not going to go back. But that wasn't one big change, is knowing that I can change, and present why I want to go part-time, or why I want to leave pulmonary clinic and just focus on the ICU. And knowing that that's going to be better for you, and not compare with others, because we are all different. And if that works better for me, good, go and do that. And really feeling that you have the agency to do that. No one is going to come to me and ask me if I want to do that. I need to know what's good for me, and then go and ask and advocate for myself and ask for that. So this year I'm ICU. My practice is critical care only, and that and then I also, so I have weeks of ICU, I have weeks that I have administrative work, and I have weeks that I'm like off because it's part of my part-time. And that really gives me such a nice schedule that I can come back from my time off energized. In my weeks at administrative, I can do a lot of work that I want to do, I'm excited to do. And when I'm in the unit, I love to be there. It's a hard week, but I know I give all myself there. And my family knows that's going to be a week that they're not going to have a lot of my support. So having the support of my husband is huge. But that schedule, I just feel much happier. And I want to tell people, and I actually started already telling, because people come to me, a lot of my colleagues come to me and say, how are you doing? How did you do this? How are you part-time? How are you changing? That we can do this. We can do this. We just, have clarity what you want, talk with your chair, explain, and find something that's going to work for you. And that's going to, of course, be fair, right? So, but I think we feel like the word possibilities, we feel that, it was never done, so we think it cannot be done. You can do things, right? Even if no one ever did before. So many possibilities out there. Once you have that in your mind, it's just like, big change.
One reflection I'm going to make is, when we are the first to do something, it's of course uncomfortable, right? Someone has to go first. Someone told me this about my journey, and they're like, someone has to go first. And I thought like, but it has really resonated with me now when I try to do something that's first, because of course it's terrifying. And of course you're worried what people will think of you. And yet if you don't go first, no one else is going to follow their dream or find their way to practice medicine. And medicine has changed so much that it's actually, I personally think, unreasonable to think we would all practice the way people practiced 30 years ago. The ICU is different. All the things that we do are different. The fact that there are so many women with families and spouses who are also working full-time, that's all different. Like, it's all bets are off these days post-COVID. And what I have seen is, when people ask, most of the time there's a way to make it work to some degree. It might not be exactly what they want, but if we don't ask, we definitely won't get it. No one's out there looking out for you. Hey, you might enjoy this, right? We really do
Exactly
stand up for ourselves. Ni-Cheng, I want to reflect too. You have done something similar, correct? In your practice, the way you set it up.
I was also going to even go farther back in time, because Michelle, your career and mine are kind of complementary in that after I was diagnosed with cancer, I made the very intentional decision not to complete critical care fellowship as kind of a line in the cement for myself, because at that time, over 13 years ago now, I didn't trust myself enough to say no to overwork and over responsibility. So I needed to make that very clear boundary for myself back then. And I'm so glad I did, because that opened me up to integrative medicine and practicing for me in a wholehearted way and living more in alignment, because I at that time said no to critical care simply because of the predictable schedule, amongst many other things. You mentioned in some ways, where do you practice where you see yourself being the best version of yourself? And for me, that was in a clinic setting, oftentimes one-on-one or in small groups where I was leading a group clinic related to integrative medicine topics. And so, yeah, I just wanted to reflect that even though both of us are in pulmonary medicine, you in critical care as well, we've had very different journeys and both work for us.
But following our heart, right? And like, noticing where we are happier, right? Where we are more aligned with, ourselves. So I think this is, it's beautiful.
And from the outside, not only are both of you practicing in full alignment, but you are both bringing amazing things to the world and to your patients and to your families by saying no to some things and by choosing what works for you. I think we often think like, oh, if I follow my heart, that's very selfish or it's not giving to the world. And I would offer, from knowing both of you quite personally, that both of you are actually bringing more amazing things to the world because of your decisions to follow your heart. And perhaps to ask that question, because I can't help myself, right? You're both doing what love would do. And this end product of wholehearted medicine and wholehearted living and wholehearted parenting and partnering and all of the things is pretty beautiful to see.
Thank you, Jessie. And yeah, I think exactly as you said, I notice, I feel like I want to help, for example, others that have been, into my shoes, like young physicians, trainees. How can I help them to not go through what I went, right? Through coaching or through wellness, and I know that I am helping them. I'm a helper. So and when you realize that that's what your gift is, right? And you do that, it just feels like that you're doing the right thing. And when you realize you can work and doesn't feel like work, and you're excited to do, and you want to just do more of that, and you feel like the impact on others. So new opportunities coming out that way, helping young physicians and through coaching, through wellness in my institution, and also in societies like American Thoracic Society. It just it feels the right thing to do, right? When you follow your heart and then you follow just things like flow, you feel like things are just so aligned. And I really like, what you taught us. You taught me like, what would love do? And when you are like reading that, what do I do here? And it's like, what would love do? Hand to heart and have that moment with yourself. So appreciative of both of you.
We are so appreciative that you joined us, and that question leads me to a great reflection question, which is, what would love do? And what might you want to change to live more wholeheartedly in your own life and career?
Yes, I think for me is living simpler, being really more present on the simple things of life. With the kids now, the kids are starting school this Thursday. I took this week off. That feels amazing. I'm here to support them, to be there when the bus comes, to be here when they come, back from, with the bus, to be able to do like they meet the teachers this afternoon and be there. 5 years ago, I had to call an nanny to do that. And that just was hard. And everybody's different, but for me, that's what is important. And for, is to be present for my kids. And I want to do that more. I want to feel that I'm aligned with, my values, my purpose, and continue to, to help others, connect with people. I think connections on a big thing for me, and help others, being, as a physician, as a coach, as a friend, So this is how I feel in this moment.
Michelle, thank you so very much for your sharing and joining us today. Deep bow of gratitude to you. And so if our listeners want to get in touch with you, how can they connect?
Email, you can share, so biehlm@ccf.org. Would love to chat, and then we can meet like I did with you, Nisheng, like just like reach out and then we meet and we talk. I love people, and reach out if you have questions. Do you want to talk about, how I went through things or anything I can help inspire? Yeah.
I love your offer here of the connection with you, and just a reflection as we close out, that this power of connection and the power of connection that you and I found, and the bravery and courage to reach out and connect with Nicheng at your, huge conference, and how we can all benefit from that. And that led us to doing this podcast, and led to all kinds of amazing other things. And so a nudge to those people who listen, to take that risk, reach out and connect, show up for a retreat, jump into coaching, even if you don't know what it is, join a group. I think you are someone who really shows off the power of being in a small group, and the power of those connections, whether they are one-on-one, in a group, in a big conference, in a small retreat. Like, just take advantage of them, because you just never know what they might lead to. And with that, a little nudge to join. Nicheng and I have our once-a-year retreat coming up in, I think, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So there's a couple of spots left. So if anybody wants to join us last minute, it's amazing. And it's the last time we're going to do it at Green Gulch. So if anybody wants to go to Green Gulch, this is your chance. And I will be at Sagrada. Actually, at the moment, the next time you can join me at Sagrada is in the spring, because the fall one is sold out. Or you can join me here now in Nicasio. I'm doing the exact same thing in a different location. Many people ask me what the difference is, and the difference is the nature. The nature looks different. No, there's a few other things. The beds are different, but it's really the same curriculum. And I may also be adding one more Sagrada retreat this fall, because I haven't had enough of my time there, or my time with Hope. So I will be considering that. And we would love it if people who listen to the podcast would leave us stars, reviews, comments, all the things that helps other people find us. And most importantly, share the podcast with your friends. I know that Michelle has done a lot of that, but people really listen when they hear from someone else how it changed or transformed their lives. And so if you listen and it's helped you, pass it along to someone else, because we're all here sharing our stories with the hope of helping. As you said, we're all helpers, and we would love to help and reach more people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We encourage you to dive into the show notes for each episode for more learnings and resources.
We also invite you to take a listen to the many other Mindful Healers podcast episodes, and please share the podcast far and wide with colleagues, friends, and family.
If our message and approach resonate with you, we would love to work with you.
When you listen to a podcast, you consume information, but when you work with us, you can actually practice and change.
We offer coaching and mindfulness experiences, talks, workshops, retreats, and more. Connect with us at themindfulhealerspodcast.com.
The content of this podcast is not medical or life advice. We invite you to participate in the mindful moments we offer at the end of most of our podcasts, but please only do so safely.
Welcome to today's mindful moment offering. If it's safe for you to do so, I invite you to close eyes or lower your gaze a few inches in front of you. Begin by settling into this moment, allowing the brain and the rest of the body to be here at the same time, syncing the mind and body as one entity, as one whole. Inviting you to bring your hands atop your heart, gently pushing in a little bit and noticing the points of contact between your hands atop each other and also atop your chest. Seeing if you can notice your heartbeat, whether it's felt from within or through your hands. Reminding yourself that you are whole, just as you are, right here, right now. And together, we as humans are imperfectly whole. Noticing the warmth that might be developing atop the chest. Noticing if there are any thoughts, emotions, or other body sensations that have captured your attention, and bringing your attention back to the sensation at the heart. Reminding you that you are a whole being, just as you are right now. And as you're ready, bringing your hands down into a position of comfort, blinking open eyes, letting the light back in. Thanks so much for practicing with me today.